Hey, 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 Nicole Roberts Jones here, and welcome to yet another episode of the Meaningful Work Podcast, a time where I build a bridge between your work and what gives your life meaning. Now, I'm going to tell you out of the bat, this guest today, baby, you better get a pen, you better get a paper. I probably say that every time, but I really mean it, especially you executives that are finding it hard to have meaningful conversations. Let me say it like that because I don't want to start saying all the things that I learned from her book. We're going to talk about that in a second. But listen, today is going to be both practical and powerful because let me say this, you can lead teams, you can steward culture, you can push for results, and yet still quietly let miscommunication, power dynamics, or unspoken conflict erode momentum. I've talked to so many leaders, me included, that think, oh, if I say nothing, it'll go away. That's not real. It's like cancer. You don't treat it, it's going to spread. And that's exactly why I'm excited about our guest today. And her name is Dethra Giles. Now, listen, Dethra is the voice organizations call when communication breaks down and culture is on the line. A sought after speaker, executive coach, and strategist, she helps leaders and teams transform how they show up, speak up, and lead across lines of power, perspective, and difference. Her work blends leadership development, organizational design, and conflict navigation. I didn't say resolution, I said navigation. Difference, y'all. And her award winning DARE model has helped thousands master high stakes conversations and build durable communication infrastructure. That's a mouthful, right? Now, she's been invited and worked with Fortune 500 companies, startups, academic institutions, and government agencies. And I want you to get this, she doesn't just inspire change, she builds practices that make it stick. So, if you want to lead with courage, you want to have tough conversations with competence and create a culture where honest dialogue drives results, then y'all get ready, get ready, get ready. Get your pen, because let me introduce our guest today, Miss Dethra Giles. Hey, girl.
Hey. I need to take you on the road with me. That intro was amazing.
Girl, let me tell you, it took a lot for me. First of all, I was going back and forth with my team. Listen, y'all, I've known Dethra for a minute. We met on the speaker circuit, maybe 10 years ago?
Oh my gosh,
Not
yeah.
live. So, but when I saw you had a book out, I was like, I have to have her. And I can't say what I said last time. So I'm not going to pull her by from the last time. And then I started reading her book. Now, I told on myself a few minutes ago, y'all, I'm going to say this out front. She has a phenomenal book. We'll talk about the book toward the end. I caught myself trying to read the whole thing, but I kept having to reread sections. So
That's
out of the gate, let me tell you why. I'm going to read this one section because this is what I kept having to go back to read it again. Why conflict feels overwhelming. Y'all ready? Here's a harsh truth. Most of us are I'm getting excited. Most of us are bad at difficult conversations, not because we're bad people, but because no one ever really taught us how to have them. We're going to
yes.
start right there at the beginning. How did you even listen? How did you even realize, okay, we all know we have bad conversations. How did you even say, okay, I can fix this. Let's figure this out. Where did that start for you?
It started really with my own journey. So I tell people I believe in some of the Freudian concepts. I don't believe everything that Freud said, but Freud often talks about people are in professions because they want to do the good side of that thing. Like firefighters really want to be arsons, so they become firefighters. Like doctors really want to be murderers, so they just become doctors to save lives instead of taking lives. Well, I was that person that did not learn healthy conflict. I grew up in a family. I tell people we are verbal warriors. Like we are in the Olympics of audible arguments, and we win the silver, the medal, the gold, and the first runner up. Because we can use our words. And what I learned, I realized I knew how to use my words to slice and dice. I was not going to sit by and take it, but I also knew I didn't like it. So one day I met this dude in college, and he was raised very differently. In our first argument, I raised my voice and he looks at me like I'm crazy. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, baby, you don't know how arguments work. We arguing." And he said, "Not like that." And I was so intrigued because how do I make my point? Because I'm not just going to sit here and pretend I'm okay when I'm not, but how do that without raising my voice, without saying hurtful things, without having to apologize for a month afterwards because I went in the gutter when it didn't really call for all that. And so I realized even with him, most people, even the people that didn't learn the way I learned, they knew how to do it. They didn't know how to teach it. So I went on a journey to not just learn how to disagree this way, but also how to teach people that didn't learn it how to disagree this way. So it has been over almost a 30-year journey of learning this, learning from life experiences, going to academia. I actually have a master's of science in conflict management. That's how serious I was about this, and actually learning how to teach it to people.
So good. So let me just out myself out of the gate, right? So I'm from, and those of you that listen to the podcast, you hear my story all the time, so you're about to hear it again. I'm from South Central LA. So the first thing you learn when you're from the hood is how to cuss somebody out, right? Instant reflex is always to go
Oh,
to anger mode.
right. I like, like I remember when Michelle Obama was saying, when they go low, we go high. I was like, no, we don't.
We go lower.
We go, baby. I am going to, and you know me, I'm from Miami, Florida. Father's Jamaican. I mean, I grew up like, you say something to me, please be clear. I'm not, as my mom would say, don't start nothing, but you can always finish it. I'll support you if you finish it. I'm not going to back you up if you started it, but if you finish it, I got you. Oh,
So good. So good. And okay, I'm not gonna make this all about me, but I'm gonna say this. The one thing that I had to learn, y'all, and it's so funny because my husband is exactly like the guy you were dating, who blinks at me.
who's my husband? He's my husband now. This May, we be married for 25 years.
So you know, so sometimes he'll blink at me. I'm like, I married a Cosby kid. He was, you know, his mom and dad were the Cosby's girl, and I'm from Boys in the Hood. So, but
we are twins from the same life because
this is why we connected years ago.
Preacher's kid, mom was a teacher, everybody in the family went to college, and baby, I'm from Liberty City, Miami. But honey, what?
So I'm sharing that with you because I think I started really getting serious about him in the middle of me working on this whole anger that I had in me that I didn't know where it was from. And so, you know, I'm sharing that, but we're going to talk more about her book. But I want you all, as we're having this conversation, to pinpoint where you are. Maybe you're not like Dethra and I, where, you know, you had the hood in you and you was ready to get a good cuss out, right? Or maybe you have other issues, other things, and we're going to talk about that. But I want you to pinpoint where you are, because as leaders, what I see happen, Dethra, is it's the things that trigger us that make us go all the way to the left. You think you got it handled and solved?
You don't. And like you said, I see it from both ends. In the book, I talk about this from both ends. We have what I call the argumentatively competent. Those are people that love a good argument. But then we also have the people that curl into a ball because they are conflict avoidant. And I want to address both, because this is not about learning how to not say the thing. It's about learning how to say what needs to be said so we can get the best outcome. And that's for everyone, whether you are the flip the tables or crawling a ball in the corner. This is for everyone.
And the thing that I kept reading your book, and you said this so many times in so many different ways, is brains treat disagreement like danger.
Yes.
Never heard that before. I was like, whoa, that like blew my mind.
Yes, because think about it. When you get into a disagreement, your body does what you are. It either fights, flights, or freezes. When our brains can't tell the difference in states of arousal. So it's like, are we getting attacked by a bear? Or is this just a little mild interaction between, because think about it, physically you do the same thing. When you get into an argument, your body gets heated, you start feeling jittery. Everything you would do if you were being attacked or you feel like you need to stand and defend yourself, you have the same physical response, which means you have the same mental response.
Right. That's so good. And so how can leaders recognize this pattern? Like, again, she said it, listen, y'all, fight, which is me, by the way, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yes.
And let me just back up and tell y'all the fight in me. So now I can feel it when it's coming up. And that's when I sit silent so I can calm her down, because if I let her out, baby, I can't pull her back.
And so many of us can't. And this is, and here's the funny thing, those people who are conflict avoidant and crawl into a ball, they have the same response, except theirs comes out in one big roar. It's like, well, I've taken enough. I've been quiet long enough. And when they blow up, everybody's like, what's wrong with her?
Girl.
Why is he acting like that? It wasn't even that deep. So we all have that tendency to have a fight response. It's just that some of us are like, it doesn't have to build up. We're going to solve this right now. And you have to recognize, like you asked the question, where are you, so that you can have the proper response. Even for people that have a fight response, I tell them, don't just go silent. Say something. Say, you know what? We need to address this later, but right now I need a minute, because I don't want you to think, I don't want my silence to make you think that I'm fine. And when I come back, you're like, oh, I thought that was handled. It was never handled. I just needed a minute to calm me down. And so I'm telling you, give me a minute so we can address this.
So good. Somebody write that down. I'm about to listen. I'm gonna listen to this again because listen, I'm gonna tell you guys, this book is a game changer. I'm out myself. I had called myself, I booked her months in advance because I bought the book and I'm like, I'm gonna read the whole book. And I kept reading the first chapter over and over. Why? Because the first chapter itself is so good, right? And then it goes deeper into. So tell us a little bit about your DARE model. And give us, don't give away too much because y'all got to buy the book. We'll tell you how to do that at the end. Because here's the thing: in 30 minutes, there's no way she can tell you everything she wrote in this book.
Listen,
But
I tell people, I give my agent gets so frustrated because I give the game away, buy the book, but I wrote this book because I wanted people to get the information. And if they can get the information out buying the book, save your money, but you can't. But so how it really came about, backing up a little bit, is I told you I have my master's of science in conflict management. So I knew I wanted to be able to teach this stuff to people. And a part of that was I had to do mediations. And so I got my certification in mediation, went on to do divorce mediations. And as I was in these mediations, I would do court mediations, people, regular old neighborhood disputes. But then I also did divorce mediations. And in the divorce mediations, so many times my heart was broken because I would see people coming there in divorce, and I looked at them and I said, if somebody had taught you all how to converse effectively, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here. Or it wouldn't be this bad. I have literally had people sit and argue over dead cat ashes. And I'm like, this is not about the cat ashes. This is not about that little funky couch your grandma gave you in college. This is two people who don't know how to talk about the thing. And now we're divorcing. And so I said, what tool can I give people that's easy, quick, and they can use their brains when their brains shut off? Because in the book, I talk about how brain science works. So when we're angry, the thinking part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex, it actually stops working. It's like, I don't do this.
Right.
You need that limbic system. You need fight, flight, freeze. You need to throw some hands. And that's not what I do. I think. So when people say I was so mad I couldn't think, that's true because the prefrontal cortex decided to shut down. And so I was like, what tool can I give people that can be stored in the fighting area? So when the thinking part shut down and they have to result back to that limbic system, the part that said I fight, I flight, or I freeze, or I fawn, what's easily stored there? And psychology tells us that if you give people something they need to use in a emergency, it can't be more than 4 things, or the brain is just not going, it's on short circuit. So I said, okay, it has to be 4 things, and then it has to be something that they can remember. And I said, DARE model: describe, acknowledge, review, engage. When you are in a tough conversation and you need to exude what I call conversational competence, you describe versus interpret, you acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences, you review the narrative you've accepted as fact, and you engage for conversation, not conversion.
So good. So good. And what I love about this is, okay, so again, I'm out of myself because y'all not here and I can't hear you. So I'm gonna use myself as a guinea pig, right? So even if I go into describe in each of these, if I say to someone, this is what I heard you say, and they then say it back, and they're like, that's not what I said. The thing that's interesting is I say relationships are relay, right? And
Yes.
so just think about if I am running and Dethra and I are on the same Olympic team and I'm passing her the baton, if she doesn't catch it, our relay is over.
Over.
So if that first part, if I don't get that, then nothing after that's going to work. Right.
And that's why that describe is so important. When I'm doing my speaking engagements, I do a lot of keynotes. I actually just got back from Las Vegas doing a keynote and headed to Minneapolis next week to do a keynote. Okay. But I do a lot of keynotes around this topic. And I use the term, I throw out to the audience, give me what % of the time for you is always. When you say the word always, what % of the time does that mean? And people are 100%, that's a lie. That's not true. When you say always, what do you mean? When you say I always do something. And Nicole, when I tell you, I get everything from The other day, yesterday, someone said 51%, 51%, 95%. It's never 100%, 95%, 60%. We are using the same word, but we don't mean the same thing. And so what if let's even give the higher end. If my always is 90% and your always is 80%, we have a problem, because when I come to you and say, Nicole, you told me you were going to always do that. And you're like, I do. I always do that. We're using the same word. And now we have an argument because we didn't describe, we interpreted. You had your interpretation of always, and I had my interpretation of always, and we never said the description out loud. And so now we're arguing, and neither of us are clear about why we're arguing, because we said the same thing.
Ooh, that's so good. That right there is enough to just hang up and be done. That's so good, right? Because that's real. That is real. And when I started asking people, okay, so let me out myself again. When people start getting on my nerve, y'all, keeping it real. And I'm a manager. I was in my 20s too. And I was, growing up, and now I'm a manager, and half of my team was older than me. And I'm managing that too, right? Impression. Right. When I started to say, tell me, this is what I heard you say. And I would do that just so I could repeat it, because somebody probably was getting on my nerve and I was trying to calm myself down. So that was my use of trying to calm myself down. But I found that when I would do that and they would say, that's not what I said. Okay, so tell me where I was wrong, or tell me where I misunderstood. It really helped me give myself time to calm down and for me to get on the same page, which then leads into acknowledgement. Because I think, even if I dare use my husband for an example, because, women, we love to talk, girl. And I remember I told my husband, I don't need you to fix stuff when I'm talking. I just need you to listen. So you're going to laugh at this, and maybe you won't. But he started going like this. Don't just reach out for a hug. Don't just do that automatically. That feels like rehearsed, right? But what he was doing was what I had asked him to do. And he was acknowledging that I was feeling some kind of way, and he was trying to just be in the moment with me. And that's the way he knew how to do it.
Absolutely. And my husband will say, is this a venting conversation, or is this a helpful conversation? That means, do you want me to give you advice, or do you just want me to pretend to listen? Because that's when he cannot give him advice, he just pretending to listen. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll say, just pretend to listen. He's like, what? Okay. Seriously. It's like, it's not even that deep. But reality, what you said was acknowledge. Just the second part is acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences. Here is the truth. Similarities make us comfortable. And because they make us comfortable, most conversations, especially conversations where there's a potential for disagreement, stop where we agree. That's why we find ourselves in the same argument over and over and over again. Like, why are we having the same argument? Because you never actually had the argument. You stopped where it got uncomfortable. Right? Oh, you said you would take the trash out. You never take the trash out. Well, we both know the trash needs to go out. Yeah, you're right. We both know. And then we end the conversation. We never got to the part that was the issue. The trash going out the door and getting picked up by the trash can. Why? Because as soon as we got there, we knew it was going to get uncomfortable. So we can acknowledge similarities and recognize that those similarities don't make us friends, and those disagreements don't make us enemies. We can go over into the realm where we disagree to actually solve the problem, because the truth is we're never going to solve the issue until we go into the parts where we don't agree.
That's so good. It's so good, which moves us into review.
Yes. This is probably the most difficult part of the entire model. And it is review the narrative you have accepted as fact. We step into a conversation, we are questioning and going at the other person. We very rarely stop to say, well, do I have all my facts together? Do I have my stuff right? And it's probably because that is based in some sort of learning that we never question. The example I give everyone right now is, how many of you all remember when Pluto was a planet? And they're like, Pluto's still a planet. I heard somebody arguing the other day. I was actually speaking to a group I was at association meeting for leaders of hospitals. So these were like CEOs of hospital, chief operating officers, chief surgery officers of hospitals. And these people, now mind you, these are PhD, MD, JDs, and they were still ready to argue. No, I'm not going with Pluto. So these people will get into an argument with a 5-year-old and say, I've been calling Pluto a planet longer than you even been alive. And the 5-year-old's like, I don't care, but Pluto's not a planet.
Okay.
because they won't review the narrative they've accepted as fact. Another one I often use is I tell everybody, pull out your phones and go to Google and ask Google, when did women get the right to vote? And Google's going to tell you 1920, 1920, 1920.
Mm.
Go ask my grandma, when did she get the right to vote?
Hello.
1965. That's a 40-year delta. That's a
Mm-hmm.
40-year difference. But if you don't review the narrative you've accepted as fact, you're going to tell me I'm stupid and don't know my history when I tell you women couldn't vote until 1965. And the same is true for our arguments. When we step in, we have to stop and ask ourselves, is the information I have factual? I know it used to be true. I started at this company 10 years ago. The company I started at, that's not the company I work in right now. And so what used to be true 10 years ago is not true now. And so I have to review the narrative that I've accepted as fact because I'm coming to this conversation with inaccurate information sometimes.
That's so good. And I think in that place too is where you have to let go of self-judgment or judgment, not even self-judgment, right? Because I
Yes.
think sometimes we're holding on to a narrative of who we think people should be or how they should act or what they should do instead of trying to see it from their perspective.
Yes.
Which is hard. I'm not gonna lie, but that again is where we can review where, okay, I've been
That's
judging this person, right? Or I will say, I had to say this to one of my team. Listen, I said to her, you remind me of myself. So I will admit to you, I'm harder on you. But as we had this conversation, it started to open up a line of communication because I hadn't outed that.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, even as leaders, like one of my biggest leadership epiphanies, especially when I was a young leader, because much like you, I was a director by the age of 27. So I was leading people that were older than my grandma. I remember some woman saying, girl, I could be your grandma. And I was like, except you're not. You
Okay, except for I supervise you, right? Right.
Here's what I need you to do, right?
Right.
But one of my biggest epiphanies, that something that I accepted as fact, was that everybody wanted to advance.
Hmm.
So I would treat people like everybody wanted to be promoted. Everybody wanted to be the CEO one day. All of my employees eventually wanted my job because I knew I was going to move on. I wasn't threatened if you wanted my job. Actually, I wanted you to want my job because I'm going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know how many people I tortured with my belief in them?
That's so good.
I see greatness. You are so much better in this position, and I'm going to help you get there. Those people did not want to get there. The receptionist, she was like, Dethra, I just want to be a good receptionist. I don't want to work as hard as you. I don't want to supervise people. I don't want to do all that. I want to come in, answer these phones, and go home. I don't want anybody calling me at night talking about something's broken and fix it. I want to come in when I'm supposed to, leave when I'm supposed to, and not have to worry about anything in between.
That's so good.
And that was
And
an
that's real.
I had to
Mhm.
review my narrative.
Right. That's so good. And then last but not least,
Ooh,
because listen, we'll keep going, and I got to get the last of the E of the dare now.
yes. This is probably the second hardest one. Engage for conversation, not conversion. When we step into a potential disagreement, 95% of us want to be right.
Mm.
I didn't come in here to hear what you had to say. I came in here to convince you that I was right so we could do it the way I said do it. When you engage for conversation, not conversion. I am not trying to convince you of anything. I am trying to converse so that we can get to the best outcome. The DARE model is not about winning the argument. It's about having an effective and productive end to a conversation where there is a high likelihood for disagreement. So my goal is not to be right. My goal is to get the best outcome, even, this is the hard part for people, even if that means I'm wrong.
But at the
And
end of the day, that's going to, even if you're wrong, it's going to long term have better benefits for the entire team because it's really not about you at the end of the day.
it's about getting to the best outcome. And when we do this, I tell people the DARE model is as much a model for strategizing and navigating a conversation effectively as much as it is a model for helping you assess if this is a conversation you should even be in the first place. Because sometimes the most effective thing is to exit the conversation. If I'm outside and I'm talking to someone and say, oh, the sky is a beautiful blue today. And they say, girl, what? The sky is candy apple red. Exit. Why
Right.
am I about to argue with you? about what is the outcome of this argument. Now, if it's my husband who I have to be in relationship with, and he says the sky is candy apple red, okay, now I'm going to just dare this whole conversation because what's going on here? Well,
Right.
babe, what color is this? Oh, that's also candy apple red. Okay, so you're seeing things incorrectly. We need to go to the doctor. Or
Right.
now, in our conversation, what I see is blue, you see is red. And so now I can strategize the rest of our engagement because I now see how you see things. And so our
Hmm.
conversation can shift. Instead of us arguing about whether it's red or blue, I now know that my blue is your red. And so now we can converse and have a better outcome.
So good. So good. Okay, so I can go on in that area for look, but we getting close. Can you believe the time is almost up? So for the folks that are listening, can you give them either one thing that they can do to start to practice this dare model outside? We're gonna talk about the book in a second, y'all. So you can buy that too. Or a ritual that can help them start to really look at how they can reframe some of the way they're doing things.
Well, so a few things. One, I say start small. People hear this model and they're like, oh my goodness, I got it. And they want to go tackle the biggest conflict they have in life. Like, oh, wait, pump your brakes. Slow down. Start small. Start with something that has a low risk and walk through it slowly. Go through in your head, and you may even say it out loud. Okay, describe. Am I describing or interpreting? Oh, that's interpretation. Acknowledge similarities, but don't minimize differences. Okay, I got the similarities. I got scared, but let me push forward. Review the narrative. I'm accepting this fact. Oh, I thought this was factual, but let me question that fact. That may not be factual. And then engage for conversation, not conversion. So find a very small, low risk disagreement and start to use it.
Hmm.
The more you practice it, the more you get comfortable with it. Take it to larger topics. For example, in the book, I talk about everything from how to ask your boss for a raise to how to address the family predator at Thanksgiving. Like
Hmm.
all of these are conversations we need to have. But if this is your first time using the DARE model, don't start with the family predator at Thanksgiving, right? Work your way up to that. Talk to that person. Talk to the family about how we're going to address this person. Don't skip it, but start with something smaller and lower risk where you can mess up, try again, get it right.
And to add to that, is I always journal. Listen, because when I'm in a heated moment and I say, we're gonna come back to that, because if I think about it, I get mad again. I'm gonna keep it real, right? And so I haven't conquered that. But what I do when I write it out and I can start to process it, and I got this sitting in counseling, y'all, and I can start to process what is coming up for me and making me angry, what has nothing to do with them, has
Right.
everything to do with me. When
Absolutely.
I can process and see where it's triggering me and then begin to look at it. Now I got tools called DARE, right? And I was doing some of this, but not all of it. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. So now I can begin to take the steps and I write it out first. Now, does it happen the way I wrote it out? No,
Mhm.
but it helps me process it so I can begin to think about how I can begin to tackle this conversation that I don't want to have.
And the DARE model is great for that too. I tell this is I'm a strategic person anyway. So this is a strategy model.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are sitting and saying I have to have, especially if we're ruminating, like I gotta have this conversation tomorrow. I know they're gonna come at me sideways. You the person that comes at you sideways, they always do it. 98% of the time they're coming at you sideways. So don't get caught off guard by someone's consistency. I already know what they're going to say. Now I can use a DARE model in my private time, in my journaling time, to strategize about how I'm going to attack this conversation. When they say X, I already know. I can ask them, hey, is that your interpretation of what happened? Or is that what I actually said? And they're going to say,
Mm.
that's what you said. I'm glad you said that. Here is what I actually said, but I know how that can land. Here is what I meant when I said that.
That's so good.
That's how it impacted me. I understand. In my head, I'm saying, I'm going to acknowledge similarities without minimizing differences. Acknowledge the similarities. I understand because some of the stuff you say impact me a certain way too. And that's not fair to either of us. But here's where we differ. You said it impacted you this way. That's not what I meant. Review the narrative, accept as fact. My fact is here's what I said, and here is how it should have landed. How did that land for you?
Hmm.
Well, engage conversation, not conversion. Okay, it landed that way with you. I don't see it that way, but tell me how I could say it differently so it's not as offensive, because we still have to work through this because we work together.
That's so good. That's so good. So listen, y'all. Go get the book. As we wrap up, I'll put the book again on screen. We'll put the link in the show notes for those of you that want to buy the book, right? And the book is called That's Not What I Said. For those of you that are now watching on YouTube, That's Not What I Said. I love that title too, right? And you see how I said that that's not what I said, right? Because that's probably something I've said over and over.
Because
So
that's
with
how that
huh?
is not what I said.
Right. Right. So I love the title. So we'll put the link down in the show notes. But as we wrap up, what do you want to last comments from our conversation?
So, you know what the thing is for me, this conversation is really about audacity. I'm doing my 5th TEDx talk, and it's really about audacity. And what I created this tool because I wanted people to have the audacity to say the things that need to be said. That's one of the 3 things that's required for evolution. I tell people the 3 things I say that are required for evolution that I dare people to do. I dare them to defy the script they've been given. I dare them to stand up even when it costs. And I dare them to say what needs to be said. And so this is part of my formula for people being able to evolve into the person that they know they were called to be and have that audacity. I dare them to say what needs to be said, and they need the dare model for that.
So good. Well, thank you for showing us how to have audacious. No, let me say the right word, right? How to step into our audaciousness. Thank you for giving us a model. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's so needed and necessary. And thank you for this phenomenal conversation, girl. I appreciate you. So good, y'all. So good. So listen, I got notes. Go get the book. I'm telling you that's not what I said, right? I'm saying it like that. We'll put the link is in the show notes. And listen, how can you be just that next level of audaciousness for your role as a leader? How can you stand in the gap for the people that are on your team by just shifting how you use this dare model? How can you have conversations that have impact instead of leaving people where they feel like their dignity is not intact? I can go on and on. So I'm so thankful for people like Dethra, who is leading the way to really help us live in all our limitlessness. So with that said, y'all, I'm always ask you 3 things at the end of every episode. Number 1, tell us, because Dethra will want to know too, what was your biggest takeaway? What are you going to implement? What insight are you walking away from this episode? So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm always going to ask you to share. Not because I'm trying to grow my following, although it does help with that, but really I'm asking you to share it because somebody in your network needs this conversation, needs this episode because they're in the middle of this right now. And then 3rd, if you haven't subscribed to our podcast, this is my invitation for you to subscribe. So with that said, I look forward to reading your comments and I thank you for joining us. I'll see you in our next episode. Bye, y'all.